Hey, Soul Tribe. I'm KamalaDevi, and I'm here with my featured love leader, Liz Morris. I'm excited to be connecting with you today. I wanted to give you a little introduction about Liz's background and her gifts because, what I'm most excited about right now is that as a somatic intimacy coach and a shamanic practitioner, she's just been on this ISTA path and now full faculty. So we're celebrating that. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. And what's kind of crazy is that this is exactly 8 years since my first level one is this week,
Wow.
possibly to the day. So it feels really good. And I love ISTA in particular and the way that it's changed my life. So it feels really good to now be able to, bring those tools to other people and literally get to watch the transformation happen over the week.
Yeah, yeah. And it's groundbreaking work that you do in and out of, ISTA containers. And so for those of you who don't know, the International School of Temple Arts is, this is global groundbreaking work. And Liz has been now for 8 years, like deeply devoted to this, shamanic upgrading. It's really soul initiatory work. And the reason I wanted to, highlight and feature you this month is because I really appreciate your unique gift for helping people claim what they want. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but just for a background, since my tribe may or may not know you already, I wanted to say that you've got a background in therapeutic practices as well as ecopsychology, which is super interesting. What is ecopsychology?
Ecopsychology is the study of the human psyche and how a lot of the split that we see in the psyche is actually our disconnection from the ecosystem, from the environment, from the planet. And so it's really helping to ground us back into the earth. And for me, that's also the body. And that's really the work that I do, is helping people to ground more deeply into their bodies, into the earth, into matter.
Yeah, it's so beautiful because I know you to be so somatic. The last time we were together, we were doing ecstatic dance and that the body is so intelligent and leads us back into alignment when we can listen to it. So with that background, one of the things that I know that you're doing is, helping people like really tune in to what they want and what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about that journey for yourself. Like what was your reclaiming of your true desires versus, your limits?
Yeah, I was actually just telling this to a client today. I literally could not say yes to my life until I learned how to say no, until I understood where my no lived in my body and could verbalize it. And I remember the moment, I remember feeling paralyzed by fear, and feeling like I had to do something that I really wasn't aligned with. And then somebody looking at me in the eyes and reminding me that I have a choice, that actually I am at choice. And I got to say my no, and how empowered I felt and how powerful I felt. And, there were ripples to my no. The person who was receiving it didn't like to hear it. And I got to see that even if people don't like it, I still get to have my no. I still get it. It's mine. And once I really embodied that, and once I had that, then I felt ah, like liberated to say my yes, liberated to actually realize what my desires were, because there wasn't this fear of what if somebody wants something from me and I can't say no. And now I'm paralyzed because I can't say my no. Once I really could say that, could honor my boundary, then I started to be able to find what my desires actually were.
So beautiful, and so relatable. So many people don't don't feel safe to say no, like it's going to be too expensive. I'm not worth it. It's going to cost me my relationships or how people are going to like me. Why do you think it's so hard for people to say no?
Whew. Yeah, I mean, that is a really good question. I feel like we get conditioned to believe that our worth is on what people think about us. And that if we are to choose ourselves and really claim our no and say no, that then we won't be accepted into the community, into the relationship, into the job. And to really stand for ourselves and to stand for our no is really saying, I'm worth this.
Yeah.
And
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, maybe there hasn't been people mirroring that in our past that are honoring our no's and saying, yeah, you're worth that.
Yeah, instead, so many people from, and I can relate from my own dysfunctional family, what gets mirrored is, your limits don't matter, like your voice doesn't matter. It's not okay in this household to say no because you'll have to go to your room and, and get punished for saying no. And so it's hard to, as an adult, relearn that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you've done a lot of work too with childhood like trauma, because a lot of times that saying no results in, it comes from childhood trauma and then it results in more trauma because you're not saying no. So your boundaries are getting crossed and so tell me a little bit about that, about like, how you somatically like bring people out of their trauma.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the ability to actually say no, what I
Yeah.
often notice is that instead of really knowing where their no are, a lot of times people go into freeze. And so it's really about retraining the nervous system into finding, how do I feel safe in my body? And then little by little, from that place of safety already, finding what is it that is actually desired? What is it that isn't desired? Where is the no? And so if somebody, for example, is in a dysregulated state and a freeze state, it's like, okay, slowing down to the pace of where they actually are so that they can actually find where it is that there is a choice. And sometimes that's like the smallest moment. Sometimes it's in the smallest thing. So really being able to find that and go slow.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we forget that we can go slow.
It's hard to do on our own. I know there's so much teachings and like almost bumper stickers around self-love, self-care. And what I love about your work is that you show up with people, to help them love themselves, to slow down, to co-regulate with them, so that they don't just, left alone, you don't know where to go, but to actually guide people back into their desire takes a listening, takes a slow care for what's underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's so interesting, that relationship between where the no is and then where the desires are. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like what, how, because I know you also help people claim like their outrageous, fantasies. And like, how do you get from this is a no to this is a yes?
Yeah, I feel like they live in a similar place. So, for example, when I talk about that freeze that happens and people aren't able to embody or speak their no, what I've observed, and this might not always be the case, but what I've observed is that it's often lived in sort of the space right under the belly button. And so as we go in and start to unthaw that, there's an energy that comes. And I don't know what one would want to call it. I often call it primal or wildness.
Mm.
And in that space is these perhaps desires that haven't gotten claimed. Maybe there's shame. And I don't mean there's shame because, they're crazy sexual fantasies, but shame because we don't think that we deserve them. It might just be like, I want a better home, or I want a nicer car. I want a job that pays me well. That might be sort of layered with shame. And so as we dissolve that to really find where our no is in our body, we're actually opening up space to find, what is it that excites us? What is it that I really want? that actually I'm afraid that I can never have, and start to open up that energy and open up the body to even get to admit that, to dare to speak it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I'm excited by that primal, that force.
Yeah, wildness.
Yeah, that wildness, because it is, there's something in the animal that wants to claim, you know, like it's like this is mine, this is possible. And there's something in the domestication of the human that's like, oh, that's uncivilized. Is that okay? So yeah, I really appreciate that. Do you have any, I know that it's a journey and slowing down is the first step, but do you have any other like tips or tools that you want to just name for, whoever's listening that might be working on their boundaries or claiming their desires? Is there a practice that you want to presence?
I mean, usually what I tell people is, one, to start small. Like I said, I often use the analogy of like approaching ourselves and approaching these wild places in ourselves and rewilding them is like, feeding a wild animal. You wouldn't run over and expect, that animal to just accept you and take food out of your hand. You would approach it really slowly, hold your hand out and be patient. And I know that I can say be patient, and people can hear that, but really like being patient and showing up every day. So maybe showing up for a self-pleasure practice, something where you're starting to connect somatically with the body, reminding the body, I'm here, so that you're teaching your nervous system to slow down, to relax, so that you come into that state of being. And then start small with boundaries, with starting to simply noticing, what do I want? What don't I want? Or even asking those questions. Sometimes we don't even ask ourselves, do I want this? And then waiting for the answer and getting honest with ourselves. Oh yeah, I really do. Or like, actually, I really don't.
I love the counterintuitive answer of like, we think of wild, we think of fast, we think of furious, and you're like, slow the fuck down, and like be patient, because wild animals will skitter off. So I love how counterintuitive and how true it is. I mean, it's painful, patience and slowness are not fun, but they're, foundational steps towards something much bigger and more rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything that you really want our listeners to know? Is there any final, message that you want to remind us?
I think just that if you are somebody who knows that there's more to be had from life, that like life is a juicy apple and you have yet to bite into it, then I would invite you to contact me through my website, somaticintimacy.org. And you could just go to my contact page, because I would love to help you start to dive into that journey and really claim what it is that you are longing for. And also starting to set boundaries on what actually doesn't deserve your energy at all.
Beautiful. Yeah, I highly recommend your coaching, and I would love to see you continue, to serve the tribe in that way. And I wanted to share, one of the things that I appreciate about you that, we can't get to today, but especially right now, because it's like the new moon. And I have this deep memory of you and I doing this equinox ceremony one time. And I just want to say how deeply connected you are with the cycles and the rhythms. And, it's a reminder, like as an archetype, the witch and the shaman that you are, that tunes into the rituals and the rhythms. And also because you're a mom with a babe in kindergarten, it's like you have that motherly earth mama energy. But it's a good reminder, I think, to our listeners to tune in, to the earth, and also to like, how do I create the sacred? How do I create a sacred moment in whatever my animal desires are? There's also this high and holy, animating impulse. And so I wanted to thank you for, musing me on that equinox and in other rituals.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you for you
Mm,
and for everything that, all the journeys that we've taken to get to this moment. Yeah. Deep appreciation.
good blessings, and we'll stay in touch.